it's still really weird seeing Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis in the Celtic green out there, and I know preseason wins don't really mean anything, or preseason numbers for that fact, but they looked really good out there, and really the entire Celtics team did too. They went 4-1, were the 4th rated offense during preseason, and even attempted the most 3-point shots of any NBA team during preseason at 45.4 per game. And again, preseason doesn't mean much, but they looked really good out there, and especially on offense. I didn't think it would work this seamlessly, the insertion of both of them into their starting lineup this quickly, but with all that in mind, they look great, and what are your initial thoughts on them so far?
Yeah, it's kind of like you said, something can be said about taking away preseason games, especially from players that kind of don't have much to prove. You can kind of expect some stuff from players that are, still fighting for a spot or trying to get playing time. But these players that we're talking about with Jrue and, Porzingis, the rest of the Celtics, they're not going to go out there and they're not sweating as hard as they can. They're not trying as hard as they can. But with that being said, you can still watch the games and you can see how well the offense flows together. You can see how well everyone moves. There was no stagnant players. The one thing I liked about Porzingis a lot is he was always getting involved one way or another. He was always setting either back picks or screens up top. He was rolling well. He was fading out. He was shooting threes. You kind of mentioned how many threes they shot. I thought they looked really good offensively. No one looked like they were out of place. No one looked like they were shooting awkward shots. It was always a shot that looked like that was a very smart choice to make. And like we said, they're not out there sweating. Same with defense. No one's out there trying absolutely as hard as they can the entire time in all the minutes they're playing. But overall, I thought it looked really good. Nothing looked clunky. Everyone was rotating really well. And kind of like you said, I was kind of surprised to see how well they looked together right off the rip.
Before we continue, I just wanted to take a few seconds to talk about and invite you to join our NBA Discord server. Our JSM NBA server is full of hundreds of people who love everything NBA. Do you like instant news updates around the league, NBA memes, talking stats, or even live chatting with others during games? The JSM NBA server has got you covered, plus so many more things to do and see. Come check out the JSM NBA server for free. We'd love to see you in there. The link will be in the description below. Now let's get back to the video.
For sure, and I really like how you mentioned how involved Porzingis was. I think the last time we talked about the Celtics, we kind of questioned how much they would involve him in their offense, given that, they have Tatum out there, they have Jaylen Brown out there who need touches, and even Jrue Holiday and Derek White, they do their fair share of offensive creation too. But they've done a really good job involving Porzingis, even though it's not giving him the ball every play. They've done a really good job incorporating him into their offense, especially through the pick and roll, not even pick and roll, but screenplay action. It might be DHO action, it might be pick and pop, might be a pick and roll for him, and then even the occasional post up too. He is very involved in their offense, a lot more than I thought he would, and given that they went, or it definitely appears that they're going in the route of only a one big lineup with him at center and not in Al Horford next to him or whoever it might be. Of course, they traded away Robert Williams, so after that, it did seem pretty likely that they would go with the one big lineup route, and I really like what I've seen from it so far. Porzingis, he can man the middle. He's a little bit like Anthony Davis in the sense that they don't view themselves as a center, but in the modern NBA, they definitely are. And at 7'3", 240, 250 pounds, he definitely is a center. And as good as he can be on defense, he helps their offense even more. All that space in the court they have now is literally insane. There's somebody open on every play from the three-point line. And with all the dribble penetration, literally all 5 guys in their starting lineup can do, they're going to get guys open. They're going to be doing a ton of driving, kicking. They can get to the rim pretty much at will. They have a ton of versatility in their lineup, and I've really been surprised at how quickly it's clicked. I mean, I have been, and I really haven't been when you think about it. Like, all the talent they have, it kind of should. But regardless, it's been very impressive so far.
It also helps to, when they can kind of iron out these crinkles that most teams would have, they don't even have them, right? Like, they're just getting their shirt they're putting on. There's no wrinkles, nothing like that. They don't have any ironing to do, which helps a lot. Say that you think you need to add another piece later down the road, it's just that much easier to fill in another piece and get someone else in there if needed, just kind of in that perspective, because the rest of them, they're all working together so well. I really like, and this is something that I didn't really realize until I was kind of looking up some stuff on the Celtics, is even with getting Jrue, this Celtics roster, they only have 2 players over the age of 30. and that's Jrue Holiday at 33 and then Al Horford at 37. So they've got a really young team, and it's interesting to talk about how young they are when they're also in the finals, potential finals, or even at least Eastern Conference Finals talks, even in this preseason. So I think that's another interesting factor to kind of think about moving forward as a Celtics fan, especially, is that they'll have a lot of time to kind of figure out some stuff with a lot of really young, really talented players. Now, it is pretty good. It all looks pretty good. The only concern I have going into the season is, even watching preseason, they still kind of play a lot of ISO ball with Tatum and Brown, which it works kind of when we talk about when it's a different guy guarding them, someone trying to get a spot, maybe someone that's like an eighth person on the bench, but it works in this. But when there's going to be harder defense on them, I don't know how it's going to work. I think they move well, but again, it's a lot of isolation plays, and they score off it now because they can, but we'll see how that kind of translates later in the season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course, we're only talking about preseason here. It should only get better as they go on, and I really do agree with you from the youth standpoint. That will help them, because I'm not a huge fan of their depth. I think it's a little bit better than people are kind of giving it credit for. Like, Peyton Pritchard's looked really good throughout the preseason. Al Horford coming off the bench will help them a little bit more now too. I like O'Shea Brissett, and then they have a little bit more depth here and there. Sam Hauser, Svi Mikhailu's even look pretty decent. Not a ton, but they're young, so they're not going to get worn out over time. They don't have to overexert all their main guys too much. They can stagger their minutes. They can play guys more here and there depending on the matchup. And I don't think it'll be too much on Jrue Holiday or Al Horford out there. I think they'll both be able to play around their typical minutes, around 30, 32, 33 for Jrue Holiday, and then around 30, if not even a little bit under, for Al Horford. So by no means I don't think they'll be getting overworked out there. So I'm not really too worried about it from that standpoint. Other than that, though, I'm really looking forward to how they incorporate kind of Jrue Holiday a little bit more too. Like, you mentioned how they did a lot of iso ball. They definitely did, and that can work with incorporating a big pretty well with Porzingis. I mean, all you have to do, high pick and roll plays, dribble handoffs, and different kind of screen actions, which they definitely did a lot with him, and I like that. But it'll be interesting how Jrue Holiday gets incorporated a little bit more. He's kind of just been the guy to bring the ball up the court and initiate their offense, and then do a little bit of pick and roll action here and there as well. But they already have obviously a really talented offense, and they can kind of get away with that iso ball and high pick and roll play. But kind of going forward, maybe they didn't want to reveal too much during preseason. There's definitely a lot of that goes on, and I agree with that too. But it'll be interesting to watch how they add more versatility to their lineup, and if Jrue Holiday will kind of be taking a step back in terms of utilization, or if they'll eventually get him a little more incorporated. Either him or Derek White will probably have to suffer a little bit in that regard, but I can't imagine they'd care even if they do. And kind of speaking of those two then, I love that defensive backcourt. They average like 3 steals per game and only about 20 minutes per game each throughout preseason. They're going to be defensive pests out there. They're going to wreak havoc. I would not want to play against that backcourt defensively. And then, I mean, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, and Porzingis are by no means bad defenders either. But that backcourt alone, that point of attack defense is going to be insane. Even if they deal with an injury to Porzingis here and there, I think they could maintain the top 5 defense regardless. They have a really well-rounded starting lineup. Their depth isn't that bad, like I mentioned again, and they're going to be really interesting to watch this season.